I raised my brother's kids as if they were my own. Every bedtime story, every scraped knee, every laugh, it was all me. But one night, he looked me in the eye and said the three words that shattered me completely. "Get out, Emma." And that's when I learned, sometimes family can hurt you deeper than anyone else ever could. When my brother screamed those words, it felt like my whole world cracked in half. "Get out, Emma. You're not welcome here anymore." The living room fell silent. The same room where I used to rock his babies to sleep. The same couch where I used to fold his kids' laundry. Now it felt like a battlefield. I stood there holding a box of toys, his children's toys, while he pointed at the door like I was some stranger. His wife, Kelly, stood behind him, arms crossed, that satisfied smirk she always wore when she won. "I've done nothing wrong," I whispered. But my voice barely came out. He didn't even flinch. He just said, "You did enough." The rain outside started before I reached the porch. It soaked through my sweater in seconds. Behind me, the door slammed shut, loud, final, cruel. I didn't even have a suitcase, just my purse, my phone, and 1,000 memories I wished I could forget. That night, I sat in my car, parked across from the house I had called home for 4 years. The kids' bedroom light flickered. I could almost hear their laughter, the laughter that used to make all the hard days worth it. And then the text came, from Kelly, just 3 words. "Don't come back." I stared at the screen until it blurred through my tears. I had no place to go, no apartment, no savings, everything I had done for them. Every night I stayed up when the kids were sick. Every morning I made breakfast before my own job. Meant nothing now, but as I sat there, freezing and alone, something inside me refused to break. They thought they were getting rid of me. But what they didn't know was that I was about to find out why they really wanted me gone. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing. It wasn't my brother. It wasn't anyone I expected. It was my boss. "Emma, I'm sorry," he said softly. "Your paycheck hasn't been transferred. Your account is closed." Closed? That made no sense. I hadn't quit. I hadn't done anything. I opened my banking app. Account frozen. Every cent gone. I called the bank. The woman on the line said, "It was flagged for suspicious activity. Your cosigner requested the freeze." Cosigner? There was only one person on that account with me, my brother. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it echo in my ears. I tried calling him, straight to voicemail. Then I called Kelly. Blocked. Something was very, very wrong. I drove to their house, still half hoping this was a mistake. But when I pulled up, his car wasn't there. The blinds were closed, the curtains drawn. I rang the bell. Nothing. Then I heard laughter. Small, high-pitched laughter from the backyard. The kids. I walked around quietly, and that's when I saw it. A for sale sign in the yard. They were selling the house, without telling me, without even a warning. And on the porch sat Kelly, phone in hand, talking to someone. "Yeah, we're almost ready," she said. "The money's already in Mark's account." Money? Mark, my brother? I froze. She spotted me and her face changed instantly. That fake smile she saved for guests. "Oh, Emma," she said sweetly. "You shouldn't be here." "What money, Kelly?" I asked. "What are you talking about?" She sighed and looked at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. "You really think we could keep you around forever? You're not family, Emma. You were just convenient." My stomach turned cold. "Convenient?" I repeated. "For what?" Kelly leaned closer, her voice like poison. "For taking care of the kids, for cleaning, for saving us thousands on babysitters. And now that the inheritance came through," I blinked. "What inheritance?" She stopped. Her smile slipped. "Too late. My brother's inheritance. From our parents. He told me there was nothing left after the debts. But apparently there was something, enough to buy a new house, enough to cut me off completely. And that's when I understood. He didn't throw me out because I'd done something wrong. He threw me out because keeping me around meant sharing what was rightfully mine." I didn't sleep that night. The rain outside never stopped, and neither did my thoughts. I kept replaying every conversation with my brother, every time he'd said, "Trust me, Emma, I'll handle it." And I had. Because he was my big brother. Because I believed family didn't lie. The next morning, I went to the county records office. If he really had taken everything, I needed proof. The clerk at the desk was an older man named Mr. Dalton. He looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from years of seeing the same mistakes. "I'm looking for property records under the Carter name," I said. He asked for ID, then typed something into his computer. After a moment, his eyebrows lifted. "There's a file," he said. He slid a folder across the counter. Inside were signatures, mine and my brother's, except the one that was supposed to be mine wasn't. It was perfect, smooth, practiced. But it wasn't mine. My breath caught. I looked closer. The date was 6 months after our parents died, a time when I could barely get out of bed, let alone sign legal papers. "He said you wanted your share transferred to him," Mr. Dalton explained quietly. A signature was provided. I shook my head. No, that's not possible." He hesitated. "Would you like me to make you a copy?" I nodded. My hands were trembling. He printed the pages and stapled them neatly, as if neatness could somehow make betrayal less cruel. When I stepped outside, the rain had stopped. But the world didn't feel clean. It felt stained, like no matter how much I scrubbed, the truth would never wash off. I sat in my car, staring at my name in ink that wasn't mine. The man who had once promised to protect me had stolen from me instead. If he could take everything from me, then I could take back what he thought I'd never see coming. When everything you believed in breaks, you have two choices. You collapse or you rebuild. I'd already collapsed. So I decided to rebuild. Mr. Dalton gave me copies of every document. Each page was a wound, but also a weapon. If my brother thought I was powerless, he was dead wrong. I spent nights at the library, researching inheritance law. By day I worked double shifts at the cafe. By night I learned how to protect myself. It felt strange, learning how to fight quietly, like the calm before the storm. I wasn't after revenge. I was after truth. One evening, I called Mr. Dalton again. "Could you tell me when the transfer was filed?" He paused. "Officially? The same week your parents' house went on the market." That was the week I'd been staying there. Cleaning, sorting, signing papers he brought me for convenience. He'd done it then. He'd forged my signature while I was grieving in the next room. I drove to the old house that night. The for sale sign was gone, the windows boarded up. I stood there on the porch, the wood creaking under my feet, and whispered, "You used them, Mom. You used me." The wind carried my voice away. But for the first time, it didn't feel hopeless. It felt like the beginning of something solid. I wasn't sure what my next move was yet. All I knew was that silence had protected him long enough. That night, I started writing my story, the real one. Weeks passed. I kept my distance, from him, from the kids, from everything that reminded me of the life I'd lost. But distance can turn into strength if you let it. I gathered every document, every email, every lie. And when the folder was full, I decided it was time. My brother worked as a contractor now, building homes for families while tearing his own apart. I waited for him outside his office. When he saw me, he froze. "Emma," he said carefully, like my name was something sharp. "I just need 5 minutes," I said. He led me inside, his co-workers watching, whispering. I dropped a folder on his desk. Inside were the photos, the forged signature, the false dates, the proof of everything. "What is this?" he asked, but his voice cracked halfway through the question. "You tell me," I said. "Because that's my name, and that's not my handwriting." His jaw tightened, and that was all the answer I needed. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said quickly. Kelly handled the paperwork. "No," I said softly. "You handled the lies." He leaned forward, angry now. "You think you can take me to court? Over a few pieces of paper?" I stood, calm. "I don't need to take you to court. I just need to let the right people see them." He went pale. "Emma!" "No." I just looked at him. "I don't want your apology. I don't want your money. I just want you to live with what you did." For a long moment, neither of us moved. The office was silent, the kind of silence that feels heavier than shouting. Outside, sunlight finally broke through the clouds. And I realized something. I didn't need him to admit what he'd done. I just needed him to know that I knew. After that day, I didn't hear from him again. Not a call, not a message. Not even a whisper through the family grapevine. Silence can be louder than any scream, and I knew he would hear it eventually. At first, it was strange living without the chaos. No kids running through the halls, no early morning school rush. Just quiet, but quiet can heal you if you let it. I started working extra hours at the cafe. The people there didn't know my story, and for once I didn't need them to. They saw me as I was now, not who I used to be. Every night I wrote, not angry words, just truth. About family, about betrayal, about learning how to breathe again. Sometimes customers would ask why I always looked so calm. I'd smile and say, because I finally stopped arguing with people who live on lies. One evening, my manager handed me a letter. No return address, no name. Inside was a single line. You'll regret this. No signature, but I didn't need one. The handwriting was his. I didn't send a reply, but someone did. And deep down, I already knew who. A week later, I got a call from a man named Harris, an investigator from the district attorney's office. Ms. Carter, he said, we've received documents concerning possible forgery in a property case. Would you be available to discuss it? I didn't ask who sent them. I already knew, my sister-in-law, Kelly. Because sometimes doing nothing is exactly what scares people the most. The day I met Investigator Harris, the sky was heavy and gray, the kind of weather that makes the truth feel closer. He was calm, polite, the kind of man who's seen too many families destroy themselves over money. Thank you for coming. Ms. Carter, he said, gesturing toward a small chair across from his desk. I sat down, clutching the folder I'd carried for weeks, the one with all my brother's lies inside. He opened the file, eyes scanning quickly, then slower. Someone inside their circle, finally spoke, he said. The documents you gave us match several ongoing complaints. I didn't breathe. What does that mean? It means your brother may have done this before, he replied quietly. To other relatives, to clients, maybe even business partners. The room spun for a second. I pressed my hands together to stop the shaking. Will he go to jail? I asked. Harris sighed. Eventually, maybe. But cases like this take time. People like him. They're good at pretending. I nodded slowly. I knew that kind of pretending. I'd lived with it. He closed the folder and looked at me. Emma, justice doesn't always feel like victory. It feels like balance finally being restored. That night, I sat in my car outside the cafe after closing. Rain tapped against the windshield. For the first time in months, I didn't feel powerless. I didn't know how long the case would take, but I knew one thing for sure. The truth had finally found its way out, and it wasn't going back in. The truth doesn't always explode. Sometimes it leaks, quietly, slowly, until it touches everything. It started with a phone call. From the woman who had messaged me weeks ago, the one with the child in her arms. He's gone, she said. He left town. But people are talking. I didn't ask for details. I didn't have to. Because deep down, I already knew that my brother's carefully built image was cracking in all the places he'd tried to hide. At first, I felt nothing. Then, relief. Not joy, just release. The kind that comes when you stop holding your breath after years of silence. A few days later, Lily, my sister, sent me a link. A local news article. Contractor Mark Carter under investigation for fraud and forgery. By the end of the week, everyone in town knew. Apparently, the same charm that fooled us had fooled investors too. Money missing, contracts faked, everything unraveling. I sat at my kitchen table reading every line. His photo stared back at me. That same confident smile, those same eyes that once told me I could trust him. Now, they just looked empty. Lily called. Her voice was calm. Are you okay? I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Yes, I think I finally am. We didn't celebrate. We didn't gloat. We just sat there on the phone, breathing in a kind of quiet we hadn't felt in years. He made his choices, she said, and now he's living them. That night, I took off the necklace he'd given me years ago. A small silver pendant, nothing valuable but heavy with meaning. I walked to the river behind my apartment and dropped it into the dark water. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like closure. When I got home, there was a message on my phone. No name, just words. I'm sorry. For everything. I don't expect forgiveness, just live a better life than I did. I deleted it, not out of anger, but because some goodbyes don't need to be answered. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It happens quietly. In the way you start sleeping again. In the way coffee tastes warm instead of bitter. In the way you stop waiting for an apology that will never come. Lily and I began meeting on Sundays. At first, it was awkward. Short talks over coffee, long silences in between. But silence can become a bridge if you stop treating it like a wall. One afternoon, we went back to Mom's old garden. The lilacs were blooming early that year. Lily smiled softly. Mom would have loved this, she said. Yeah, I answered. She always said flowers were proof that life keeps going, even after winter tries to stop it. Lily looked at me for a long moment, her eyes soft, filled with something I hadn't seen in months. Forgiveness. I was angry at you, she said quietly. For a long time, but not because of what happened. Because you reminded me of who I used to be, someone who believed in love without fear. I swallowed hard. I still believe in love, I said, but now I know it's not about holding on. It's about knowing when to let go. She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I think Mom would be proud of us. That night, I went home and opened my old journal, the one I started the night he threw me out. So many pages filled with pain, with questions, with pieces of the woman I used to be. But that night, I wrote something different. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without bleeding. For the first time, I closed the book without crying. Because healing doesn't erase the past. It just teaches you how to live beside it. A week later, Lily texted me a photo, her standing in a small flower shop. A grand opening sign behind her. She called it Second Bloom. Her message said, for both of us, a new season. I smiled. Because she was right. The storm had passed, and even though the ground beneath us was cracked, something beautiful had begun to grow through it. A year has passed. Sometimes when I look back, it feels like that night happened to someone else. Someone younger, smaller. Someone who still believed that love and family were the same thing. Now I live in a small apartment near the ocean. The waves are loud enough to drown out my thoughts, yet gentle enough to remind me that life keeps moving, no matter how many times it breaks. Every morning, I walk to the shoreline with my coffee. The salt air stings my skin, but it feels like honesty, real and clean. Lily visits often. She brings flowers from her shop, their scent filling my home like forgiveness. We don't talk about my brother anymore. We don't need to. Some names lose their meaning once you finally outgrow the pain. Last week, she told me she's seeing someone new, and for the first time, I didn't feel that old fear that love would hurt her again. Instead, I felt peace, the kind that comes from knowing you've survived the worst version of goodbye. As for me, I'm not in love. Not yet. But I've started something else, a small blog called Letters I Never Sent. Strangers write to me from all over about heartbreak, betrayal, forgiveness. And I write back, because I know what it feels like to love loudly and lose quietly. Some nights, when I post a new story, I imagine someone out there reading it, feeling a little less alone. Tonight, the sunset is pink and gold, the kind of color that only comes after a storm. I sit on the sand, watching the tide erase the footprints in front of me and whisper a quiet prayer to the wind. Thank you for the pain that became purpose. Thank you for the endings that made room for beginnings. And when I close my eyes, I see Lily's smile, the ocean breathing, and my own reflection. Not broken, just whole. Because sometimes the happiest endings aren't about who you end up with, they're about who you finally become. Sometimes, the people who break us are the ones who teach us how to rebuild. I learned that love isn't about blood. It's about who stays when everything falls apart. So if you've ever been betrayed or had to forgive to heal, this story was for you. Because sometimes, the quietest endings are really new beginnings.